tonight. A University of Saskatchewan report outlines how post-secondary schools can address disputed Indigenous ancestry in the wake of a CBC investigation. And the Saskatoon Police Service is reviewing its use of force policies after video surfaces of a recent arrest. Plus, will the old Taylor Field site ever be home to affordable housing? We hear what advocates and the city have to say.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, November 3rd, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. A new independent report outlines how the University of Saskatchewan and other post-secondary schools can address what it calls the growing poison of Indigenous identity fraud. The document stems from a scandal 1 year ago, which involved a high-profile professor at the university. She claimed to be Indigenous, but a CBC investigation found no evidence to support that claim. Today, an investigator who examined her case for the university has released a report as the academic world is in the midst of yet more turmoil over this issue. Jeff Leo reports.
Annie, greetings. My name's Morningstar Bear.
For decades, University of Saskatchewan professor Carrie Barassa had claimed to be of Indigenous ancestry.
I'm Bear Clan. I'm an Anishinaabe Métis from Treaty 4 territory.
But 1 year ago, a CBC News investigation found she was of entirely European ancestry. Barassa was placed on leave and under investigation, but then resigned. So the investigator focused on the broader problem, Indigenous identity fraud.
I think the university underestimated the utter greed of white people who will do anything to get the jobs and the prestige and the money and the positions.
She says for decades, universities have been setting aside jobs and scholarships for Indigenous people, but no proof was required in order to qualify.
It's poison. It seeps out everywhere, and then everybody is tainted by it and everybody's damaged.
Just last month, CBC News published an investigation into Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond, a high-profile academic and former judge who for decades had claimed to be Cree.
What status does that give you?
I'm a Treaty Indian. The
CBC News investigation found no evidence in support of that claim. Retired Senator Lillian Dick and a group of other Indigenous women are calling on 11 universities to revoke honorary degrees they granted to Turpel-Lafond.
Someone does something that's unethical or lacks integrity, there should be consequences.
Most of those universities have told CBC News they take these allegations seriously and are looking into them. As for Turpel-Lafond, in a statement released shortly after our investigation, she said she continues to believe her father was Cree. She said he was adopted by her non-Indigenous grandparents from a Cree family, but she hasn't provided evidence for this claim. Jeff Leo, CBC News, Regina.
The Saskatoon Police Service is reviewing an arrest that happened earlier this week. Cell phone video shows an officer punching a suspect after a foot chase. It will be reviewed by a supervisor and a use of force committee. Depending on how that goes, it could be forwarded to the Public Complaints Commission. The man shooting this video is in a bus shelter on 22nd Street. Police say the incident began with officers called about a suspicious person. They arrived and spotted the man exposing himself and urinating on the thoroughfare. The man took off when an officer tried to question him. The video is posted on Facebook and has been watched over 200,000 times.
In this case, the officer was making a lawful arrest. The suspect was fleeing and refusing to be arrested, and when taken to the ground, was refusing to comply, refusing to be arrested. And so that creates a real dilemma for the officer in terms of, how strong is this person, how violent is this person, what's their motivation for wanting to get away.
McBride says the officer immediately reported what had happened with the suspect, which is what triggered the internal review. It's been more than 5 years since the former home of the Saskatchewan Rough Riders was demolished. And since then, a huge empty lot has remained, despite repeated promises for development. The CBC's Alexander Kwan explains why.
The demolition of Taylor Field was meant to herald a world of possibility. A large plot of land in downtown Regina ripe for development, just as the Rough Riders got a new home only blocks away. Now, more than 5 years later, nothing has changed. This space remains an empty lot. No work has begun here, and it's not clear if it ever will. You're not even supposed to be able to park here. This space was supposed to be so much more, and that's exactly how the City of Regina sold this project more than a decade ago.
On the site of Mosaic Stadium, we'll develop a state-of-the-art residential neighborhood. The design will seamlessly bring a mix of both affordable and market-rate housing.
CBC has dug up multiple interviews with former Regina Mayor Michael Fougere, where he references housing being built at Taylor Field. Former Mayor Pat Fiacco, the man who unveiled the Mosaic Stadium project, described the housing at Taylor Field as part of the vision for the project.
I would like to think that they're working towards that vision. And again, things change over time. We've gone through a pandemic. So to be fair to everybody, we're not living in the same times as we were a few years ago.
Even the institution of the City of Regina seemed to believe there was a commitment to build housing. A document published online highlighted that fact, but it's now been edited by the city. It said the document inaccurately implied that City Council approved or committed to affordable housing at Taylor Field. That's the view shared by current Mayor Sandra Masters.
There's no concept plan, there's no formal approval for what happens on Taylor Field other than the broad concept of what could happen there.
It's a disappointing turn of events for housing advocates in the city.
This could have made a real difference, and unfortunately we're sitting still to this day with an empty area and discussion of other projects taking place in that area when really there continues to be a desperate need for more affordable housing.
For now, there is no clear plan about the site of the former Taylor Field. The city is considering several major projects, some of which could potentially find a home here, but none are housing related. So for now, this part of downtown Regina will remain empty and unused. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
The Saskatchewan government will spend $20 million a year on a new Marshals service. The government says it's doing this because certain areas of the province need a greater police presence. The new force will have 70 officers and be fully operational in 4 years. They will respond to areas with high crime rates, arrest people on outstanding warrants, and investigate farming-related offenses, including theft and trespassing. The Marshals will also be an independent agency reporting to the Minister of Policing and Public Safety.
We fund the police or the RCMP to the tune of over $211 million a year. We still need basic policing in our province, rural and otherwise. And this is a step, it is a higher level of policing.
The opposition says while crime prevention and enforcement issues exist, the $20 million is best spent elsewhere. The NDP says it is also concerned about the independence of the force, reporting to the minister. Meanwhile, former students of a private Christian school were also at the Saskatchewan legislature today. These students are among dozens who have filed criminal assault and abuse complaints against school and church officials at Saskatoon's Legacy Christian Academy. They've also filed a $25 million lawsuit. The students came here hoping to meet with Premier Scott Moe. They want his government to do more to protect children in these schools. That includes banning a controversial curriculum known as ACE. They say the U.S.-based ACE curriculum is banned in many North American jurisdictions. One student says she's disappointed Moe refused to meet with them.
And it's about children never going through the kinds of things that we've gone through. And we've had a lot of adults that have been in a position of authority that have failed us over and over and over. And sitting today in legislature kind of feels like a repeat of that.
Education Minister Dustin Duncan says he's awaiting the results of various investigations before making any decisions. He says the government is monitoring these schools carefully to ensure students get a high-quality education. Well, poppies are starting to show up again on shirts and jackets in honor of those who died at war. And this year, there's an environmentally friendly poppy option. For the first time, the Royal Canadian Legion is offering biodegradable poppies as well as wreaths in the lead up to Remembrance Day. Previously, poppies were made from plastic and felt. The Royal Canadian Legion is going through their remaining stock of plastic poppies before they're completely replaced by their biodegradable counterparts. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Every driver hits the occasional detour, but this one was a surprise for a woman in Ontario. A rental agency told her she was too old to get behind the wheel, in their vehicles at least. CBC's Angelina King has the story.
Okay, get in. Elizabeth Schlarb and her adult foster sons with special needs have a busy schedule that has Schlarb driving a lot. Taking them to activities, running errands, and driving across Ontario to visit family. Schlarb is 84 and very comfortable behind the wheel.
I don't have any speeding tickets. I don't have any accident tickets.
But when she went to pick up a minivan she booked to drive a large group to visit family out east, she was told she was too old to drive it.
I was offended. Don't judge people by their age.
The rental company, Green Motion, has a policy that bars drivers over 80.
I have never run across this problem before.
Graham Webb practices elder law and says Green Motion's rule could be a human rights violation unless the company can prove it can't get insurance for customers over 80. No major car rental company in Canada appears to set maximum age limits on drivers.
The Ontario Human Rights Code really prohibits discrimination in the provision of goods and services based on age.
Bill Van Gorder is with CARP, an advocacy group for older Canadians.
It's profiling to a large degree, just assuming by looking at somebody that they can't do something.
In a statement, Green Motion International said age restrictions are often in place because of insurance demands. It also said it allows franchise owners to change the age rule to ensure it meets local legislation. The owner of the airport location where Schlarb was denied didn't specifically address the age rule, but said the branch reviews and updates policy regularly and is always looking to make improvements. Schlarb says she wants Green Motion to know she did make it to see family in New Brunswick by splitting up the group and driving her own car instead.
I wish I could have gone back afterwards and said that I did drive the 1,300 kilometers all the way there and all the way back.
Still, she calls her would-be rental experience offensive.
I hope it'll never happen to anybody else.
Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. 22 model clear out is on now.
And meteorologist Christy Kleiman-Haga joins us now. Christy, the snow has come and gone for the most part, I hear, but it's left quite a bit in its wake.
Quite a bit, and there is more on the way, so this break is going to be a little bit of a short one. But thankfully, that system that was driving all of that nasty weather into central Saskatchewan, including some road closures, some highway closures, has moved on towards the east, but we will see more snow to come. As for our temperatures today, a little cooler on the back end of the system. Temperatures well below the freezing mark and below what's normal for this time of year as well. And we are seeing some breezy weather, so a little bit of a wind chill factor out there. Winds making it feel like the minus double digits across much of Saskatchewan. Now, as for our winds this hour, they are starting to ease up a little bit, gusting to about 35 kilometers per hour in Regina. We will see those winds still a little gusty tonight before easing up through the day tomorrow. Our satellite and radar, though, looking pretty nice and clear, seeing some cloud cover that should dissipate overnight, and it looks like it will be a really sunny one tomorrow. A nice break, a good time to get outside because temperatures with that sunshine will warm up just a little bit. As we make our way into tomorrow evening, you will see just a weak system skirt across northern Saskatchewan, but a bigger system we have our eye on for Saturday. That low pressure system moving through, affecting many of the same areas that saw snow yesterday. Now we're going to be seeing another 10 to 15 centimeters of snow with this system, as well as the risk of freezing rain, especially in east central Saskatchewan, just north of the Yellowhead corridor. So something to keep in mind if you do have travel plans this weekend. It will be a little bit dicey before that system moves off into your day on Sunday. Now, as for snowfall amounts, it does look like many of the same areas that saw the heaviest of the snowfall will once again be in that bullseye, anywhere from 10 to 15 centimeters, even higher amounts up to 20 centimeters around the Prince Albert area. So something to keep in mind if you want to get outside, tomorrow's your day to do it. 5 degrees in Regina and sunshine. Winds should ease up tomorrow as well, but then into Saturday, you'll start to see a little bit of that wet weather as well. 7 degrees on Saturday, showers before that cold front sweeps through, dropping our temperatures down. Windy conditions through the weekend as well. And as you move into next week, you will notice the cooler weather will have real staying power this time. -5 on Monday, more snow through the early half of next week, another system making its way through. And it looks like that snow will stick around for quite a while as temperatures will remain below seasonal, even the minus double digits by midweek next week. And into Saskatoon for tomorrow, 1 degree, sunshine as well, but then that sun goes away and we will be seeing quite a bit of precipitation over the rest of our forecast period. Temperatures still around the freezing mark for Saturday, and it will likely be a slippery, slushy day on the roads for Saturday as well. Windy conditions through the weekend, cloudy conditions, and temperatures behind this system much cooler, back down towards the minus single digits, -9 degrees on Monday. A snowfall right through the early part of next week. It looks like we could see quite a bit of it piling up, so something to keep an eye on for the end of the weekend. Temperatures again into the end of next week, into the mid-minus double digits and even mid-minus teens in some areas. So definitely a different forecast for tomorrow versus the rest of the forecast period. So if you do want to get outside and enjoy a little bit of nice fall weather, tomorrow's your day to do it. Ethan?
All right, maximizing my outdoor time and my running shoes tomorrow, Christy. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Well, you're looking at the ball of the disputed goal in the 1986 World Cup. Replays suggested superstar Diego Maradona kicked it in illegally with his hand, and now the ball is going up for auction later this month. It's expected to fetch at least $2.8 million US. And just who is selling the ball from one of the most controversial rulings ever? The referee, of course. We'll be back after the break. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has delivered her much-anticipated fall economic statement. Faced with stiff inflation, she says the government has struck a balance between targeted spending to help the most vulnerable and keeping a check on the deficit. The CBC's David Thurton reports.
Chrystia Freeland has this message for Canadians. The economy will likely get worse before it gets better.
We talk a lot about how this is a time of economic uncertainty. What that really means is no one knows for sure what's going to happen.
The finance minister says we are facing the real risk of a recession. 2 scenarios are in play, a soft landing and a hard landing. The baseline scenario shows GDP slowing to 0.7% and a jobless rate of 6.1%. On the downside scenario, GDP shrinks to negative 0.9% and a jobless rate of 6.6%.
What we're announcing today, what we've been doing throughout, is to strike a balance between necessary compassion and support for Canadians and fiscal responsibility.
To help Canadians cope, the government is proposing new targeted measures. The Canada Workers' Benefit will now be delivered quarterly to 4.2 million Canadians, rather than just at tax time. The interest on federal student and apprenticeship loans will be permanently eliminated, and the feds will also negotiate credit card fees with the finance industry. And if the banks don't play ball, they'll legislate those fees lower. It all means the government is adding $6.1 billion in new spending this fiscal year. These spending proposals will pass with the support of the NDP, though they aren't completely satisfied.
With Canadians struggling with the cost of groceries, no attempt to tackle greedflation in a concrete way.
Leader of the opposition. But Conservatives say the new spending will fuel inflation.
Conservatives will stand for the common people, their paychecks, their homes, their savings.
Freeland believes this won't accelerate inflation, which this former parliamentary budget officer agrees with.
It's hard to make the case that even in this high inflationary environment, that small amount of money and the way it's targeted would be create problems for our challenge to reduce the inflation rate.
Despite the billions in new spending, there's one bright spot for fiscal hawks. The government is projecting a lower deficit, $36 billion instead of $52 billion. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
This country's two biggest airlines are going to court to avoid paying compensation to passengers for flight disruptions. Air Canada and WestJet are appealing recent decisions, ordering them to make the payments. And these could be precedent-setting cases with implications for a wide range of claims. Sophia Harris has the details.
So these are my photos from my Costa Rica trip.
Simon Uramian enjoyed his Costa Rica vacation in July, but not the trip home. Air Canada cancelled his return flight, causing a 7-hour delay. At the time, the airline blamed crew constraints linked to COVID-19. Under federal rules, airlines must compensate passengers up to $1,000 if the flight disruption is within their control and not safety-related. In an email, Air Canada rejected Uramian's compensation claim, stating the flight cancellation was safety-related.
I think it's just they're just labeling it as safety issues to try to get around paying people compensation.
Air Canada told CBC News the cancellation involved weather and crew availability and didn't warrant compensation. Uramian is considering filing a complaint with the Canadian Transportation Agency. The CTA has already ruled on 2 cases involving staffing shortages, one with Air Canada and the other WestJet. In each case, the airlines were ordered to pay compensation. The CTA also stated airlines generally have control over staffing issues unless they can prove otherwise. But it's not case closed. Both WestJet and Air Canada have launched legal battles in federal court to appeal the decisions, arguing the CTA misinterpreted the rules.
We meet our obligations.
In WestJet's case, this company executive argues it had no choice but to cancel the flight because a pilot called in sick shortly before takeoff.
We do believe it was a safety issue, and that's why we're appealing, and that's what the court will rule on.
This consumer advocate says if WestJet and Air Canada are successful in court, certain compensation claims may no longer fly.
If they get to win on this legalistic argument, any staffing disruption is out of their control, which seems bizarre for an employer.
The CTA declined to comment. According to the agency, since May, air passengers have filed more than 16,000 complaints involving flight disruptions. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
And Christy is back with one last look at our forecast.
Thanks, Ethan. And luckily tomorrow morning you likely won't have any shoveling to do, but don't put that that snow shovel away too far because you will need it before the week's out. In Regina tonight at midnight, -8 degrees, clear conditions. By tomorrow morning you will see that cloud cover clear out, -4 degrees, a little breezy though through the day. Temperatures above the freezing mark by the afternoon. And in Saskatoon, -10 degrees tonight, clear conditions. By tomorrow morning, that sunshine will be beautiful, will be sticking around. Temperatures at about -7 at 9 a.m., but warming up towards the freezing mark in the afternoon. And another milder day on Saturday, albeit messy day, but the milder weather does have a shelf life. It looks like as we head through the end of the weekend and into start of next week, that's when we'll see the temperatures drop and stay pretty cool throughout the rest of the forecast.
All right, well, we will enjoy it while we can. Thanks, Christy. That's it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Glenn Reed's back at 11. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.